There comes a moment in life when you suddenly realize that your days are full, yet your heart feels strangely empty. Your calendar is packed, your phone never stops buzzing, your responsibilities stretch from morning until night. And yet, when the noise finally fades, a quiet question appears. How did life become so busy, but feel so thin? Many people believe this feeling means they are failing, that they are ungrateful, that something is wrong with them. But often the truth is much simpler. They have been filling their lives in the wrong order. This is not a story about success in the traditional sense. It is not about productivity, money, or achievement. It is a story about meaning, about attention, and about the quiet choices that shape a life more than any title ever could. One late afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through tall classroom windows, a man named Professor Nolan walked into his lecture hall carrying a large glass jar. He was not a dramatic speaker. He did not raise his voice. Yet when he entered a room, people naturally grew quiet. There was something steady about him, something grounded. Without saying a word, he placed the jar on the desk at the front of the room. The students watched, curious. Then he reached beneath the table and slowly pulled out several large stones. Each one was heavy, rough, and solid. He lifted the first stone and gently placed it into the jar. The sound echoed softly, then another, and another. Stone by stone, he filled the jar until no more could fit. The stones pressed tightly against one another, reaching the top of the jar. Professor Nolan stepped back and looked at the class. "Is the jar full?" he asked calmly. The students leaned forward. It clearly looked full, nothing more could be added. "Yes," many replied, "it's full." The professor smiled, as if he had been waiting for that answer. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a small pouch filled with pebbles. Without speaking, he poured them slowly into the jar. The pebbles slipped through the gaps between the stones, settling into spaces the larger rocks could not reach. He gently shook the jar. The pebbles sank lower. Once again he looked up. "Is it full now?" Some students hesitated this time, but many still nodded. "Yes," they said. "Now it is." Professor Nolan nodded thoughtfully. Then he reached down one final time and brought out a container of fine sand. Slowly, deliberately, he poured it into the jar. The sand flowed effortlessly, filling every remaining space between stones and pebbles. The jar appeared completely full. He asked again, "Is the jar full now?" This time the students answered together less confidently. "Yes." Professor Nolan paused. Finally, he picked up a small glass pitcher filled with water. He poured it gently into the jar. The water seeped through the sand, filling the jar completely, right to the very top. Only then did he speak. "Yes," he said softly. "Now it is truly full." The room was silent. Then Professor Nolan turned to the class. "This jar," he said, "represents your life." The students sat straighter. "The large stones represent the most important things in your life: your health, your family, your closest relationships, your values, your sense of purpose, your deepest dreams." He paused. "If everything else were taken away and you still had these, your life would remain meaningful." He gestured to the pebbles. "The pebbles represent important things too. Your career, your education, your home, your financial security. These things matter, but they are not the foundation." Then he pointed to the sand. "The sand represents the small things: endless distractions, constant notifications, busy work, habits that consume time but give little back." The room remained quiet. "If you fill your jar with sand first," Professor Nolan continued, "there will be no room left for the stones. And this is how many people live their lives." He walked slowly across the front of the room. They fill their days with urgency, with noise, with things that feel important in the moment. and one day they looked back and realized they never made room for what truly mattered. He stopped and looked directly at the students. Most people do not fail because they lack effort. They fail because they place their stones last. The weight of his words settled into the room. One student raised her hand. "What about the water?" she asked. "What does that represent?" Professor Nolan smiled warmly. "The water represents the small moments of joy, a quiet conversation, shared laughter, a walk without a destination, a cup of tea with someone you love." He paused. "It reminds us that no matter how full life seems, there is always room for joy if we allow it." But then his expression grew more serious. "Here is what most people misunderstand," he said. "Balance does not happen on its own. You must choose it." He turned back to the jar. "You must choose to place your stones first, and you must protect them, because no one else will do it for you." The lecture ended shortly after, but for many students the lesson stayed. Among them was a man named Daniel. Daniel was known as reliable, organized, always busy. His days were filled with deadlines, goals, and obligations. He wore exhaustion like a badge of honor. But as he walked home that evening, the image of the jar stayed with him. He began to ask himself difficult questions. When was the last time I truly rested? When was the last time I spent time with someone without checking my phone? When did I last do something simply because it mattered to me? That night, Daniel looked at his schedule and realized something unsettling. There was no space for his stones. Over the following weeks, he began making small changes, not dramatic ones, just intentional ones. He went to bed earlier. He made time for his health. He called his parents. He let go of commitments that drained him, but gave nothing back. Nothing extraordinary happened, but slowly life felt heavier in the right way, more grounded, more meaningful. This is the quiet truth the jar teaches us. Life will always offer more pebbles, more sand, more noise. Your time, your energy, your attention, these are limited. If you do not decide what matters most, life will decide for you, and it will rarely choose the stones. So ask yourself today, what are your stones? What gives your life meaning? What deserves your time before everything else? Protect those things. Build your life around them. Let the pebbles and sand fit where they can, but never let them replace what truly matters. Because in the end, life is not measured by how full your days were. It is measured by how full your heart felt. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who may need this reminder today. Don't forget to subscribe for more meaningful stories that bring clarity, purpose, and quiet wisdom. Thank you for listening. May you choose your stones wisely, protect what matters most, and build a life that feels truly full.